This is he. This is Caesar.
Hey, Caesar, this is Dave Duenas and my co-host Gabriel Montoya. You're on live right now on Leaving in the Ring. How you doing, brother?
Good, doing good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Caesar, so let's talk Nick Diaz over here really quick because this is a boxing radio show, and it's really got a lot of people's attention about Nick wanting to. Now, it's not a debut. We know that because he's been in boxing. He's fought professionally, but he's been calling out some names, and there's been names being brought up about it. How much in truth are we close to him getting in with any of the three names that have been mentioned, which is Fernando Vargas to Jeff Lacy to Sergio Martinez?
Vargas, I don't think is happening, unfortunately, and because I think that would have been a great fight. You got two of these Hispanic fighters. Vargas, I think, is a little heavy. I heard some possible problems with him passing a physical right now. So it didn't look good. Now, Jeff Lacy is a game opponent, obviously a very tough fighter, and I think right now that's the guy we're looking at most, and we're pretty close to putting that deal together. There's a couple of names that I haven't mentioned. Believe it or not, Roy Jones was interested in this fight, and we were talking to their representatives about it also. I think that would have been a great fight because Roy was going to fight Anderson Silva, the whole MMA,
right,
the boxing guy some time ago. And, just you got to have something that the spectators want to see. But and then another name mentioned, it never really got into any kind of serious consideration on our behalf, was Sergio Martinez.
Uh-huh.
Sergio, A, he fights at 160, and I wouldn't have Nick drop down to 160 to take that fight. B, Sergio is one of the top guys in boxing right now, and it's not something that you can just jump from MMA to fighting a guy like Sergio Martinez. It's
right.
just not a good idea. You know what I'm saying? We got that name mentioned to us, and I believe his manager wanted to see that happen. It's definitely something in the future that if Nick can get past these tests in front of him, it's something we would look at. But and maybe they could meet at a catch weight. But right now, I think that's a lot to bite off. It's maybe more than you can chew right now with a guy like Sergio Martinez.
So he's more or less looking to stay at what, the light heavyweight or possibly super middleweight. What is he looking to do?
Super middle would be the best bet, 168. Light heavyweight would have been with Roy Jones Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And but we're looking at most likely a Lacy fight at super middle.
Let me ask you this, Caesar. What is the intentions of doing this, for doing the crossover? I mean, a lot of times we've seen this attempt, and it's not the most successful attempt ever. But is this just Nick wanting to be Nick and say, I'm just going to give it a shot, or is it because he really did run out of any oppositions in his side of the fence of the sport?
Well, no, it's not. When Nick was talking about running out of opposition, he didn't mean at welterweight in general. He meant at Strikeforce. There is guys that I think would be some great matchups and exciting fights for everybody to see. A site that we could build upon in the UFC. There's some tough guys there that would be, great for Nick Diaz. But pretty much he ran through the Strikeforce division, everybody that actually has a name that people can recognize. There's a couple other guys out there that are pretty tough, but they're just not recognizable by the fans right now. So he doesn't have any big fights to look forward to in Strikeforce is what was happening. Also, Nick's been fighting for 11 years. This kid started fighting when he was like 17 years old. He's a professional.
Right.
And it's, you got to take a break from something. I'm sure you've seen a lot of boxers get burned out. They get burned out with the training, with constantly having a fight in front of them, and it's just not healthy mentally, and then you're not going to have the best Nick Diaz or the best boxer, in front of you when you get a guy feeling like that. So Nick has to change things up a little bit. He does spar with a lot of good pros, and he does very well with a lot of them. And, it's something he wants to do. I think that historically, the whole, can an MMA guy box? What level? Is he an amateur boxer? Can he actually deal with a serious pro? That's the question that has to be answered. And Nick being the best boxer in MMA is Nick Diaz. Now, can he deal with a pro and a respected pro, not just a guy that went pro, but a guy that's respected? That's a question that has to be answered. I think it needs to be answered. I think there's a historical aspect of that, so that's what we're looking to do.
I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Gabriel Montoya from Max Boxing. What's up, brother? Go ahead and ask your questions.
Welcome to the show, Caesar. I'm curious. So, Roy Jones and Jeff Lacey are guys that aren't necessarily respected in boxing anymore. I mean, they're named, but these are guys that haven't had a good fight in a long time. Jeff had announced his retirement, I think, last year after his last fight because he had such a poor showing. Why fight guys like that? I mean, is it just kind of the way a prospect in boxing would kind of build up, take on a guy with experience, but with some flaws that you can capitalize on so you can get experience?
Well, you got to remember that, Lacey, despite the fact that he's not in the same spot he was some time ago, neither is Roy Jones, obviously. He's not the same boxer he was some time ago. He's still got a big name. These guys have names in boxing. Lacey did lose to that one guy that wasn't really highly ranked, but Lacey's still a ranked boxer. I think he's somewhere in the top 50 or whatever it is in boxing. So a lot of people expect Lacey to win that fight. For Nick, who's only had one professional boxing match, to come in and fight a guy that, you're going to get to that debate, who is respected. Well, Sergio Martinez, but he's probably one of the pound-for-pound best guys out there.
Right.
Yeah. And why would Nick come out and fight a guy like that right off the bat? It doesn't, we want to fight a guy that's tough and has name recognition the public knows. And these guys, they fit that criteria and they're available and they want to do it. So if there's another person out there that has been, they're not necessarily available. They don't necessarily want to do it. There's contractual obligations sometimes that they can't get into, and that's the problem.
Well, let me ask you this, Caesar, because obviously Nick is, in my opinion, he would be the draw and the star for any of the other guys that we're mentioning, from Martinez to Jones right now. So does it make sense? I mean, when it comes to negotiations, your guys' leverage would be a little bit more of making it happen in Northern California. Would that be right?
It really doesn't matter where this fight happens because Nick is a national figure at this point. He's main eventing a lot of shows, so the public knows exactly who he is. I think something like this is going to draw the MMA fans and it's going to draw boxing fans, kind of unite the two in seeing something like this. So, that's why we're interested.
He's really upfront. He's very blunt. He's one of those kind of guys that are just vocal. He says exactly what's on his mind. He says it to his opponents, It's always and I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't watch MMA, but I watch Nick Diaz because he's exciting. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys that you just want to hear what he's got to say next. He's almost like the MMA version of Christenheimer Oriella or Ricardo Mayorga. But my question is that we've seen him in the MMA world be very brass and very aggressive in interviews towards his opponents, where it's almost like a hate type of thing, okay? Do you think he's going to carry that even in boxing? Do you think he'll carry that persona?
I really do. Nick looks at the combat arts as warfare. He's in there to do damage to his opponent. He understands that his opponent's trying to knock his teeth out. This isn't a sport of golf or something like that. He's going to battle when he fights, and you see that attitude when he fights. Now, when the fight's over, it's over, and it quickly dissipates. But until that point, he realizes that someone's trying to take money from his pocket, and someone's trying to knock his teeth in. So, what else is there to be said about it?
Right.
And that's his attitude. That's the kind of attitude Nick has towards it, and it seems to have worked for him. I think the public appreciates his fighting style. A lot of these guys you get in the UFC or the MMA, they're content with getting a takedown, kind of holding you there, and they've learned how to win a fight by not fighting. And Nick is the antithesis of that. He's there to fight you, so that's why he's exciting.
Is Nick the right guy to do the crossover? I mean, he obviously can take a punch. He has the persona to kind of come over for the trash talking department. Is he the right guy to make that crossover?
Yeah, there's nobody else like him. There's no one with an appreciation for boxing. Nick has worked out with some excellent boxers. He's been a sparring partner many times for Andre Ward, and a bunch of other good pros. Omar Henry, I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, we know Omar.
Okay, well, Omar was just here. They sparred a lot, and I truly believe Nick is the best boxer in MMA. And some of these other names that people are thinking are better, well, not to name names, but I've seen him spar, and trust me, Nick is the best boxer in MMA. So if you're going to get a representative from MMA, it's got to be a top representative, and possibly why not go for the best guy and see how far MMA has gotten to, at least are there guys with good hands? Let's see where it's at.
I'm really intrigued by this, man. How close are we of finding now a name opponent for Nick Diaz, and how close are we to find out when will this all come about, and when will it happen, and where?
We're probably about a week away. Nick has already signed on the dotted line. He's accepted. He's waiting for an opponent. He's signed for the fight. I spoke to him today about it. He's excited about it, actually. I think this actually motivates him more than an MMA fight. If I was to tell Nick, look, you're fighting MMA in 3 months from now, 4 months from now, whatever, it just would not excite him right now. He does not care. He frankly had the last fight, was kind of, he just wasn't motivated to even do it. He still put on a great performance. It was very exciting, but the motivation going into it, it just truly wasn't there. And for boxing, he is motivated. So, and that's the difference. So he's excited about it.
Well, there you go, brother. Thank you, man, for taking the time to talk to us. Hopefully we can get him on next week so we can speak to Nick and tell him he could talk to a couple of Chicanos, Mexican-Americans here on Leaving the Ring, and have Chicano talk. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
I am curious, Cesar, just one last thing. If you guys do this fight, how soon would you come back to a pro boxing fight, or would you do pro boxing, then back to MMA, and kind of go back and forth like that? Is this a one-off, or is this basically like a split career kind of move where you'll be doing both at the same time?
Well, number one, you'd have to see if he's successful coming out, with this one. The last one, he fought a tough guy. He won. He's done one professional boxing match. He actually fought a guy out of Oxnard. I can't remember his name right now, but it was a really tough guy. And, Nick won a unanimous decision in that fight. If he was able to beat a guy like, whoever it may be coming out, then it's something we would definitely probably get into again. Now, as far as his next fight, we're really serious about it being a boxing match and not an MMA match.
You're on Leaving the Ring, and like I said, hopefully we can get him on next week so we can chop it up with Nick and find out if he has a name and opponent.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right, you take care too, brother.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I know some fans are going to be turned off by that. I mean, I know they're not really into seeing an MMA guy cross over, but in my opinion, Gabe, if there was going to be a crossover, if there was going to be somebody who dares to be brave in the sport of boxing from another sport, because we've seen football players try it, in the MMA, we haven't really seen a whole lot of it. Not somebody in a whole profile like a Nick Diaz. I like the fact that it is Nick Diaz because he is a guy that kind of reminds me of Ricardo Mayorga, a guy like James Toney, very hot-headed, a kid that doesn't mind controversy, a kid that doesn't mind speaking out his mind, and a guy that does like to fight and is going to bring numbers to the game. He's going to bring, be able to bring an audience to cross over just the way James Toney did to the UFC. So, and I think that was our main complaint we had asked for. Okay, one of our named fighters went over and was choked out was choked out like a seal, and with a matter of minutes in their world of MMA, the UFC, when were we going to get somebody out of their world to be brave enough to cross over to our side of the fence and be brave? And it sounds like Nick Diaz is going to be the guy. He is the trooper that's going to be jumping off the plane and land on hostile territory when he comes and stepping into a ring, whoever he decides to step in with.